We're an express elevator to hell, my friends, going down the rabbit hole. Today we're talking about Gravis armor. This video started as an Intercessor dilemma, but it's very much evolved into a Gravis versus Tacticus dilemma, so let's get straight into it. So welcome to the weekly tactics video. I'm John, the Blood Angels commander, and every week we're going to talk about how to make you a better Blood Angels player. But today we're focused on those Gravis Marines. Let's talk about them. So if we talk about a standard Marine, that is a toughness 4, 3 up, 2 wound model. And what we know is true about toughness 4, 2 wound models in 10th edition is it feels like these guys die incredibly fast. The meta has so many 2 damage weapons. I personally have really struggled to run standard Marines effectively, but saying that, I do actually run a squad of Intercessors on my list. I really love their sticky objectives, so it's not all bad. Let's talk about Gravis Marines. They are 2 additional toughness and an additional wound, and to get that additional toughness and wound, what you have to give up is you move 1 inch slower. But what that additional wound will mean is instantly a 33% increase in damage versus 1 damage weapons in terms of survivability, and also a 50% increase versus 2 damage weapons. And why it's a 50% increase against 2 damage weapons is because it will take 2 hits from 2 damage weapons to kill a Gravis Marine. So these are obviously Heavy Intercessors. Heavy Intercessors have a cool thing that when they stand on objective, if they're hit by a 1 damage attack, they get to add 1 to their save, which actually gives them a 2-up save. So I've done, as you would expect, some maths looking at Gravis Marines and Tacticus Marines. So although this is started really as Intercessors, this has actually turned out to be, very much so, a video just looking against regular Marines versus Gravis. So we talk about bolt rifles, and here are the numbers. So it will take 40 bolt rifle shots, or 40 bolt rifle hits, because I factor out the chance of hit. So 40 bolt rifle hits to kill 4 or 5, it would be 5 times 2 is 10, 5 Marines. So a standard 5-man squad will need to be hit with bolt rifles 40 times. Whereas a Gravis squad, and that would just be 3 Marines typically for Gravis, toughness 6, 9 wounds, they would need to be hit 54 times, so it's a 35% increase. And if it was Heavy Intercessors on an objective, against the bolt rifle, it's 80. So you can see straight away, Heavy Intercessors on an objective against strength 4 weaponry, they're literally twice as survivable, even though overall they have less wounds. Interesting, right? Let's talk about Flamestorms next. So Flamestorms are strength 6 minus 2 damage. We'll take 11 shots, or 11 successful, because they auto hit, so essentially 11 hits. Whereas the Gravis Marines will take 18, so 60% increase in survivability there. Against Power Fists, the Gravis Marines have a 50% survivability increase. Bear in mind that we are comparing basically 5 Marines here against 3 Gravis. And then against autocannons, the regular Marines will actually be stronger here, and the reason they will be stronger is because 3 damage is the ideal number to kill Gravis Marines, whereas 3 damage may actually end up, you will need more shots because the 2 wound Marines will die to a 3 damage shot. Makes sense, right? So against 3 damage weapons, your 5-man squad of Marines will be 5%, it's very, very slight, but they will be 5% more survivable than the Gravis Marines. Now, if we go further down and look at Heavy Bolters, Heavy Bolters will will kill the Marines with 15 shots, or 15 successful hits, whereas the Gravis, they will need 36 successful shots. That is a 140% increase in survivability against Heavy Bolters. Now, that's quite a lot, because there is a lot of Heavy Bolters kicking around in the meta. Part of that will be, or a big part of that will be, Heavy Bolters will wound these Marines on 3s, but will wound Gravis Marines on 5s, right? Las Cannons, again, Las Cannons are going to typically going to do more than 3 damage a shot. They never do when I'm firing them, they only do bloody 1+1. But regular Marines will be more survivable against Las Cannons. I'm not expecting people to really be killing regular Marines with Las Cannons, but hey, it can happen. And then lastly, I put down the Rotary Cannon, which seemed like a good weapon because it was strength 6, which is kind of the break point for Gravis, and it's -1 and it's 1 damage. So Gravis Marines against Rotary Cannon, this is the Rotary Cannon on the bikes, the pioneers of the Votan. They'll take 30 successful hits to kill 5 Marines, whereas it will take 36 successful hits to kill 5 Gravis. And then if your Heavy Intercessors on the objective, it will take 54 successful hits. 54 successful hits from those bike rotary cannons. Strength 6 -1 damage. That's a lot of hits. That is a serious amount of survivability those Heavy Intercessors have. So I have been running Heavy Intercessors now for probably like 2 months. Just one squad, and I throw them around the board with a Librarian Dreadnought, and I try and dump them on an objective to, one, hold the objective with their OC2. I should have probably mentioned that both Intercessors and Heavy Intercessors have OC2. And then, hopefully, if the enemy target me with 1 damage weaponry, I'm pretty survivable, and even if they target me with some things like heavy bolters, which typically are used to kill standard infantry, I'm pretty darn survivable, right? So, and these numbers are all before you factor in cover. It'd be very easy to get cover on the Heavy Intercessors or Gravis Marines in general, or it is reasonably easy to get cover, I suppose. Some armies can ignore it, like Votan, but some cannot. So these are your numbers. So I guess if your Marines and Gravis units are similar in points costs, then you can see here in some situations, basically against anything that does less than 3 damage, like against 1 and 2 damage weapons, Gravis are significantly better. So before we go any further, please consider liking and subscribing to this video. And remember, if you want to get notifications, make sure you click the bell and set notifications to all. If you do not do that, then you'll probably miss one of the live streams in the future. And people always tell me, hey, I missed the notification for your live stream. That's why YouTube doesn't always set all to default. So click the bell, change it to all. There you go. All right, let's move on. So my current list has 20 Gravis Marines in it. I'm taking it to a tournament literally tomorrow. This video goes out on Friday, tournament's on Saturday, and my list is 5 Heavy Intercessors. The plan for them is to hold the middle, or a no man's land objective. I've got 6 Aggressors. They're going to deal damage, hopefully survive. They haven't survived much recently, but they do deal damage. We've got 3 Inceptors. They're going to do that 3-inch deep strike. They're going to score points by killing off chaff and hopefully landing on objectives or in enemies' deployment zones or in no man's land, wherever they need to be. 3-inch deep strike, very, very powerful. And then I've got 2 times 3-man squads of Eradicators. They're going to be transported up the field in a repulsor. My aim is to get them in Melter 2 range for the bonus damage against enemy armor. The fact that they're in 2 squads lets me diversify the fire because they have baked in rerolls. I don't need to use Oath of the Moment or anything on them. So that's going to cost me 625 points for 20 Gravis Marines. And that actually seems very reasonable. So if you divide that down, that is 31 points per model, and just for a little bit of context, Sanguinary Guard are still 35 points per model. So Gravis Marines are reasonably well costed and quite competitive when you talk about durability. Now, my current list of the 20 Gravis. If we talk about the Heavy Intercessors, only 20 points more than regular Intercessors, so that's 23% more. Now remember, when we looked at some of the survivability against like heavy bolters, they were 140% more survivable. So 23% more, 140% more survivable. I would sort of argue that Intercessors don't do any damage this edition anyway. I mean, we could really go into semantics and say that the Heavy Intercessors have a better range loadout than the standard Intercessors, but I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to say that Intercessors in my list are really designed to stand on objectives and score points. They don't really do that much killing. So the Heavy Intercessors only being 23% more is very, very interesting. Let's talk about Inceptors next. They get that 3-inch deep strike, which will score points and kill chaff. So they're cheaper by a squad of 5 Death Company by 20 points. So that's like 23%, again, the difference. My last 3 9-inch charges with the Death Company, with their baked-in free reroll from their datasheet, have all failed. So on my last 3 9-inch charges with a reroll, so that's 6 charges in a row at 9-inch, I have a 0% charge rate. Now, you don't do any killing or contesting with a failed charge. Yes, you can use Rapid Ingress for 1 CP, and that probably is the way to deploy the Death Company, but it's not always that easy. Sometimes if you Rapid Ingress, you're going to take a lot of fire, you're going to lose models, and it's a very risky play. So the Scepters are like a low-risk scoring points unit, and at 23% less, that's very decent. Let's talk about Eradicators. 6 of these guys, which I'm running, cost 190 points, which compare that to like a Devastator squad for 120 points is 58% more. But Devastators are typically going to average just 4 hits, 4.75 if they have the first turn they use the Cherub. With heavy weapons when they're moving. Eradicators are going to average 5.56 hits from the 6-man squad when they're moving. But then the Eradicator is going to get full reroll wounds and full reroll damage against monsters and vehicles. So even though it is just like one more hit, the consistency or the bonus you're going to get from those rerolls is going to very, very quickly make up for any lost damage. And a very quick edit here to the slide will tell me that 5.56 is 17% more than 4.75, and that includes the Cherub. So actually, when you probably take away the Cherub, Eradicators are probably somewhere in the region of 35% better at shooting, but full rerolls and full to wounds and damage is just going to make them really a much better option than the Devastators, especially when you start factoring in that increased survivability that we talked about in the previous slides. I wanted to say that I did try Terminators a few times. Someone's going to be asking in the comments, why no Terminators? So in my opinion, Terminators are now a defensive unit. They survive better than most due to the toughness 5, the 2+, the 4 up in Fun. But having tried them multiple times in 10th edition, I find I don't find either of the squads cost effective for their weapon options. Stormbolters have no AP, so it's not great. Chain Fists seem super underwhelming, even with the anti-vehicle 3 up, because their AP isn't really powerful enough to punch through vehicles, and you don't get enough hits. You only get like three attacks per model hitting on 4s, so you really don't make that many hits with Chain Fists, and then the AP is not really high enough for only a 2 damage weapon. And I don't think Thunderhammers or Lightning Claws are good options either. I'm going to wait for DTM to prove me wrong on this, but from right now, as much as I like Terminators, and I think if we roll back to 9th edition, I was probably one of the only Blood Angels players to field Terminators consistently at tournaments at a reasonably high level. I didn't win any tournaments, but I went 4-1 in 2 or 3 events, I think, and maybe 2 or 3 of those events had Terminators in them. I actually ran both, depending on the meta. At the start of 9th edition, I ran both their Terminators. Towards the end, I ran the close combat ones. So I really like Terminators. I've grown up with Terminators, but I just can't find a way to make them work in the current edition. Like, I just don't think they're a good unit. They're too expensive, and yeah, I'm not a fan of Terminators at all right now. Okay, so why do I think Gravis Marines are great in Gladius Task Force? And I'm going to be taking Gladius Task Force to this event that I'm going to tomorrow. I'm going to try and shoot some videos at this event, and I'm going to try and take some photos so I can clue you up on all the stratagems that I've been using. But yes, we all know the strength of Gladius by now. If you haven't, you should be watching my army list shows or my battle reports every week. The flexibility it gives, in my opinion, is really valuable, and I hope I'll do well with it and I can come back and report and share like a really strong Gladius list. Maybe if I could go 4-1, that would be amazing. I don't know if I can. There's a lot of armies I haven't seen in the meta yet, but we'll see. So, in the early game with Gladius, you can pretty much always use Advance and Shoot. That's for your whole army. That's Devastator Doctrine. In the mid game, you can probably fall back, shoot, and charge, which is super strong, and apparently I believe that's only available in Gladius. Blood Angels have fallback and charge, but Gladius has fallback, shoot, and charge. So if you're like on a tank or a dreadnought or something that's maybe not good in melee combat, you can fall back, shoot all its guns, and then charge and tank shot. So there's a lot of options there. And then also late or mid game, when you need to make those long range charges, you can advance and charge. And bear in mind, for 1 CP in the command phase, you can put any unit in your army into any doctrine that you need. So no unit will ever get stuck up in combat because you'll just fall back, shoot, and charge. No unit will ever have a charge too long because advance and charge, and no unit will be out of range at any point because advance and shoot from Devastator Doctrine is brilliant. I really like the Gladius detachment. So combine Gravis Marines with the ability to yeet those Gravis Marines around the board with a Library and Dreadnought, or fit 6 in a Repulsor, or fit 7 in a Land Raider Redeemer, makes up a lot for their 1 inch of less movement. You know, I've been running the Repulsor for a number of weeks now, and Art of War put it pretty high on their tier list. They actually put Land Raider Redeemer as one of the best vehicles in 10th edition for Space Marines, and you can fit 7 Gravis units inside there. That would be perfect for like 6 aggressors or 6 eradicators with a biologist to give them the fire discipline rule. Fire discipline rule, we've covered that in another video. I'll link it up above. If you haven't seen my fire discipline video, you should probably watch it. It's kind of absurd how much damage aggressors can do, and that's one of the units that I'm going to be taking to the tournament. So Gravis Marines work really well in Gladius, and they work even better with Blood Angels because of that Library and Dreadnought. Library and Dreadnought being super important or super strong right now just to move these units around, and their big weakness, I guess, is their 1 inch less move than their sort of toughness 4 Tacticus cousins, should you say. So where I stand with Gravis Marines is, it's my first 10th edition tournament this weekend, and after this weekend I'm probably going to start experimenting with some of the other detachments, but I think I'm definitely going to try Gravis plus Librarian Dreadnought in some of those other detachments. I think Gravis are what might be winning me a lot of games. They might be carrying me a little bit just because they're extra survivable. I did really dislike infantry at 4 wounds at the start of this edition. I'd like to hear if anyone else playing Blood Angels is anywhere close to 20 Gravis Marines and how people feel about them in general. Leave me a comment down below. I actually have 22 Gravis Marines in my list when you add in the Gravis Captain and the Apothecary Biologist. Honestly though, I'm not feeling all that confident, having not played an event in almost 10 months due to having a 1-year-old baby, but it'll be good to get back into the swing of things, and maybe I'll surprise a few of my opponents. I can't imagine many people have played against Blood Angels fielding 3 tanks, 2 dreadnoughts, 20-something Gravis Marines, and then like 1 squad of jump infantry. That's not a very standard Blood Angels list, but hey, I've played it on the channel 12 times, I've won 11 times, so I feel like hopefully we'll do okay. I've been making videos every week for the last bunch of weeks on all the new detachments in Codex Space Marines. Last week's video was the Vanguard detachment, which really actually did surprise me. I'm going to link it up above. If you've not checked out that Vanguard detachment video, yeah, please check it out. That's pretty much everything from me this week. It's been a joy to be here and film a tactics video for you guys. This weekend, I'm at a GT, so I hopefully will be live, but maybe not on normal times, maybe a bit sporadically. And I'll try and update you all with posts on Discord or on my Twitter. I'll leave my Twitter link down below if anyone wants to follow me there. Have a great week, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for the support as always. Do really appreciate it. I will catch you next one. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.